Good morning to you, the people. Hope everyone is doing great this morning. Sorry for my tardiness, a little bit of technical difficulties. This is the first time that I am doing this, so please bear with me. But if there's any suggestions or anything that you have, feel free to let me know. Hello. My name is Jeff. This is Strumwood Guitars. I run a guitar repair shop. I'm just based outside of Vancouver, BC, and I get asked this so much. Can I pay? Can I just hang out? Can I be with you? Whatever, and watch you work on my guitars. And unfortunately, just due to my space and how I work and when I work and all that kind of stuff, it's not the easiest thing to actually facilitate. So I've been bugged by a lot of my friends and clients and stuff to kind of do this over the years, and I'm happy that I've finally figured it out. So welcome, this is the bench, and I plan on doing this on a pretty regular basis actually, and it's just going to be kind of the guitars that I have in the bench, on the bench, in queue, different things. I do everything from restrings, setups, electronics, structure, cracks, breaks, some finish work. So I never really know what's coming across the bench in any given day, which is kind of half the fun of it, and that's why I really enjoy what I do. One point I'll get to how I got into this, but for now, let's just get right into it. I've got two that are in queue for today. The first thing is what's on the bench here, and this is a Gibson J35. There's a couple things that are going on with it, and kind of what I'm going to be doing this series with is, as I'm going through the repair, I'll kind of discuss, and you can just see what it is that I'm doing. So in this case, there was a setup that needs to be involved, so we'll take a quick look at that, and I'll just kind of, like I said, I'll explain as I'm going. And I've already redone the pick guard, but the pick guard was actually lifting, so I had to remove it, clean up all the area, all the excess glue. It's a very common thing actually, that pick guards start coming up and lifting in corners. So that has been reapplied, and now that's good to go. So we'll just get right into the setup, and let's do it. So the first thing that I always do when I have a guitar, especially in for a setup, is just kind of see what's going on. So as I'm kind of taking a look, I'll give it a quick strum. Nice big sound actually. And then I'm just measuring it. So I'm just trying to see what it's coming in at. I can't make it better or worse if I don't know what it's currently set up to. So we're sitting at 5/64ths and 4/64ths. So we want a lower action is what the requirement is, and there's a couple different things you can do. Acoustics are a little bit easier than everything. Moving forward, I'm going to do a much more in-depth, detailed videos on how to set up every particular instrument, but in this case, it's just going to be just kind of as I go through it. And then the first thing I'll do is, once I've measured it, is I'll actually put a little pencil mark on the bridge, again, knowing where I'm going to be. And now what I'll do is I'll take the string tension off, take this to the sounder, just bring it down a little bit, and that will be the action setup. Again, acoustics are pretty easy in the sense that we really only have a couple points that are going to change action. Our next one, which is a PRS electric guitar, there's obviously a lot more moving parts, but in any case, let's get right into it. So I've got two different camera angles for the bench. I think I like this one much more. Not because my face is in there, super washed out face, but just because you have a little bit of a better idea of what's going on. Also, in this particular guitar, we are keeping the strings, so I'm not going to cut them off or do anything rash like that. So quick little tip for you. The first one already, look at that, is actually if we throw a capo just in behind the nut, because we're going to do a fret polish, and then you pull the slack off. Now the strings come out, but we don't lose it on the ends, because that's always an annoying feature. And in the acoustic guitar, in this particular sense, now the next thing that I would do in a setup is kind of two things. One, I will actually polish the frets, and we do the fingerboard and oil that and stuff. And then as the oil's sitting on this, then that's actually when I do any other type of work, just to kind of not be working against myself so that I can do guitars pretty quickly. I've got quite a few of them really at any given time, so having the ability of making it kind of quick and efficient as possible is ideal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it over to my other bench. This is my main bench. I try and keep this as clean as possible. There is another camera coming. Once I figure out which angles I want and which ones that you like, feel free to let me know. But there is another bench behind me that I actually do all my fret stuff on. So I'm going to escape this area and you'll kind of see me in the distance. So just so I can show you the difference, I realize I should have done this. Again, there will be another camera in behind me. But is there a better... That one? Yeah, sure. That one might be the best one. But yeah, it's kind of difficult to see. So in any case, what I'm doing is I'm removing all the tarnish that's on the frets. So in this case, all I'm doing first off is I use steel wool, and I do change my processes depending on the guitar. So in this case, I'm just doing steel wool and just kind of takes the abrasion off, kind of gets any of that grime off. I got a couple more steps that I do, but yeah, it's a little tricky to show you the before and after. I got either that angle or this angle, and I think that which one's gonna be better? Oh yeah, you can see that. So I haven't done the last 2 frets. So even when I'm moving it like this, you can see the shine kind of coming up the frets, and they don't do that on the last 2. So that's really the first step, is kind of removing that tarnish. And then once I do that, then I actually have a polishing wheel. I also use polishing cloths. I've got a couple different things. Again, depending on the guitar, it's really depending on, obviously, if you're working on electrics, you have to be very careful of the steel wool. That's a big reason why a lot of people don't like it. I actually really enjoy it because it makes a nice, quick, easy job. And then, yeah, that's the other reason why I do it on the other bench, just so that I'm not scratching anything when I'm in the final polishing stage. And to answer your question, I am not affiliated in any way, but I actually really like this Music Nomad stuff. Again, depending on the finish of the guitar, I got a couple different ones, but I reach for this one almost all the time. It's just a really nice all-in-one. So it waxes, it cleans, it removes anything. And I have a feeling that the next guitar is going to be a little grimy. So we may have to use another cleaning agent that I use on that. So I'm going to go back to the other bench and finish that, and then use my wheel, and you'll see the difference there. back. Did you miss me? Alright, so there is the difference there. I guess we're coming a little bit more this way. You can see that there's a lot more shine coming off of them. I don't know if that's going to actually work in the zoom. Oh yeah. So that was, the steel wool just to kind of remove all that abrasion, and then I just use a polishing wheel. It's a little rubber wheel. There's all sorts of different things. That is a fret polish, which is a little bit different from, say, a fret dress or fret crowning. Those are all terminologies, but that's more so when you're getting into like the refret mode. So if you're crowning, you're actually putting the shape back into the fret. We want them to be round. And then a fret dress can sometimes kind of, some people will call it that, and then also the edging. But then fret polish is just basically make them shiny. It doesn't necessarily serve a huge purpose, but again, that's to each their own. I like them to be nice and shiny because I always think of it as like the crystal glass. So if you lick your finger and kind of run it around the top of the glass and it gets that ring, frets do the same thing. So if it's all grimy and it's got a lot of stuff on there, you might not get the same kind of effect out of it. Also, depending on how bad it is, it could actually impose on your playing, which is not ideal. So now the next thing that I'm going to do at this step is, because I have to do a little bit of work and very, very minor. The one thing to remember when we're actually adjusting action on an acoustic, especially with the saddle, is that you can't really add material. Sure, we can do shims and all that kind of stuff, but I don't want to do that. We want it to be a nice solid piece that's in there. So we're just going to bring it down just a hair. But if you're on an electric and you slam the action down, no problem, because we can bring it back up, and we'll explain all of this stuff as it comes across the bench. But in an acoustic, less is more. So just go a little bit more, and then also because there's going to be so much seasonal changes, us being in the Pacific wet coast, there's a lot of change that happens in the neck with all the wood and stuff. So I don't want to go too low that it feels great right now, because it will eventually go into an extreme back bow. Or just become unplayable. So we don't want to do that. So let's throw some oil on the fingerboard and just kind of let it sit. I can see that it's a little thirsty. And we'll also do a little bit of a extra clean on the bridge here too. So I let it actually go in, especially if it's kind of dry. I let it actually build up. I should have started all of this by saying, this is how I do it. I'm not saying that this is the way or the only way or anything like that. This just is the way that I do it. I've done a lot of guitars, and I'm all kind of about efficiency, but also I don't just cheap out on guitars. I want it to be nice and clean and consistent. So this is what I have found after doing tens of thousands of instruments over the last couple of years. But another thing that I like to do when I'm oiling is I actually throw a little bit on the bridge, and you can see the difference of that already, just how much it kind of pops out. So again, I might have another room mic. I've got all my sanding stuff beside me, so I'm just going to leave you here for a moment, and I'm just going to go take down a little bit off of the top, and I'll be right back. All right. So the one thing that you really want to make sure that you're doing as well when you're sanding anything, especially on an acoustic, well, really in general, actually, nut slots are no different, but I see way too often things that have been shaved on an angle or not consistent, or we just took sandpaper to one side because you wanted to lower that side of action. What happens, especially in this case, there's an undersaddle pickup. So if we have a saddle that's kind of rocking in there or it's not full contact, you're actually going to lose that string, or it's going to be weaker than the other strings when you actually go to plug it in. This is going to a player, not that that's important. Any guitar I put the same effort into, but this would be specially known because he is constantly plugging this into PA systems, and that would not be ideal. So that's actually soaking in pretty quick, the oil that's on here. So it's just a lemon oil that I use, and you can see in some areas maybe that it's, no, not really, but it's soaking in, which just means that it's bringing in all that moisture. But I'm going to demoisturize it. And I'm also going to keep these lives up, I think, for at least the foreseeable future, just so we can all kind of learn together. But I will be doing a little bit more in-depth stuff as that goes on. I will be doing some long-form videos and training and so forth. So let me know if you're digging it. Let me know if there's anything that you think would be nicer to see as far as angles and cameras and stuff. So this is just kind of what I thought when I'm ever trying to find something, is just what is it that you're working on, and we can talk and stuff, but at the same time, not everyone wants to see my face, so look at that, we can do that. So just as a side note, just as I kind of have that cloth, I actually have a basket that I put that one cloth in, and kind of saying what I like to keep this bench clean. So now that I'm getting to the kind of finished stage, starting to clean and stuff, I don't want the cloth that I'm using to be picked up. You definitely don't want a cloth that just does everything. You use oil on it, and you use dust on it, and you use whatever. Because all of that stuff is going to transfer from one another. So if I'm oiling a fingerboard and I've got, say, grease on my cloth, I mean, it's kind of basic, but you'd be surprised on how often I see this as well, is that perhaps we did the steel wool on the fret. A lot of people use that, and they use the cloth to kind of wipe it off. Well, now all those little fibers are stuck in the cloth, and then the first thing that we're going to do is when we spray the guitar, you're now grinding into the top, which is not ideal. So just a little kind of word to the wise there. The cool thing about an acoustic setup is that they don't actually take quite as long because there's not a lot of moving parts. So now that I've kind of cleaned this up, I'm just going to take off some of the, we're on this one. We're just going to take off some of these. You can see these notches on the saddle. And we don't necessarily want those to be too deep. Again, it's a guitar that's been played, which is awesome, but my job is to make it better. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of sandpaper and just kind of break those down a little bit. I don't want those to be so deep, because what happens is that that messes with their intonation and stuff. And also you'll start getting some weird sympathetic kind of string buzz if those become too deep. So a little tech tip there for you. So I normally just take a little bit of 200 or 220 sandpaper and kind of do it by hand. I'm not going crazy. I'm not doing anything too difficult. I'm just trying to break down those edges a little bit. So you're seeing a little bit of a difference there, just a little less. It's not anything too crazy. Again, that also plays into our action. So I've already taken it off the bottom, so I don't want to file off the top too much. And I also don't want to mess with those intonation points because there is an angle that's coming on the saddle. And it's also good to know, I mean, I can see that this is my B string, but it's also good to know when you take this out. Sometimes I will actually put a little B and a little T on the bottom, so for bass and treble. So if you're not too sure and you're taking it out of your guitar, we want to make sure we're putting it back in the same way. It's the same size, so obviously it's very easy to put it in backwards. And again, you'll just kind of notice that as you start moving up the guitar that it's kind of going out of tune because your intonation's all off. So, but yeah, we'll put that back in, and that's that. So now that we have the capo hanging out on the back of the headstock holding our strings in, it's really just trying to find the string and putting them back into their saddle slots, which makes it nice and easy. This is always like Murphy's Law. It's like having a basket of hangers. They just inevitably, as much as you try, they will just interconnect. I don't know. I'd like to meet the person who invented the hanger. I shouldn't say that though, I use hangers. So I just put enough tension on it to kind of hold it in place because I don't want to, because the capo is coming in behind the nut here, I don't want to be cutting into the nut slots. So I just bring it up enough in tension so that, yeah, it's not gonna pop off the peg. And then once I get them all at that point, then I'll take the capo off and then we can bring it back up to pitch. Of course, I got so excited I forgot one of the key steps. So I'll just spray a little bit underneath. I obviously do that when the strings are off. I'll just clean this area because once the strings come back on, it gets a little tricky, as you will see, to kind of clean in underneath. So I use that time, and I just do it around here because I'm going to be picking it up and handling it. And then when I'm all done is when I do my kind of final clean. All right. Capo off. So that's really all I'm looking for. Feels nice. I can feel it's already a little bit lower, but the next step is going to be adjusting our truss rod. So there's a pretty substantial up-bow. It's funny, this is always a thing. What I'm doing right now has always been, people get flabbergasted about sighting the neck. And I know actually a lot of guitar techs that don't sight the neck. And all I'm really doing is I'm looking at the edge of the fingerboard here, and I'm just trying to see if there's some sort of character there, if there's some sort of big hump, or a whale tail, which is what we call it, which generally when the neck connects to the body, you'll see a little bit kind of coming up at the end. That's for the fretting series when we get there. But and it also will kind of show you if there's a little bit of a twist. If you've got one side that perhaps is a little bit higher than the other one, which this one is starting to do ever so slightly. So this is nice and low up here, and I've got a tiny bit of a hump actually up right in about the 13th, 14th fret on the high side. It's very, very slight, so it's not anything crazy. But when I'm drawing up the invoice, I actually just comment that. If it's really bad, I'll make the client aware of it. But I put it in my private notes just so that I know, okay, well, on this day, this is what happened. But so now we're just going to do a light little truss rod, just a little bit, nothing too crazy. We'll just adjust that in. And that one should be all we need to do here. And so another thing I'm doing, I'm just kind of doing a little bit of back force. So the truss rod was a little tight. Normally when I'm doing any adjustment, I actually put a little bit of pressure on the headstock, and all that's really doing is kind of allowing that truss rod freedom. You're twisting this little knob that's inside. If you've never seen a truss rod, I don't know if that's gonna actually show up. See just this nut hanging out right here. Where are we? Right there. And then when you're adjusting it, obviously, we can go and we can make it tight or we can make it loose, and that's changing the way that the neck is reacting on the guitar. But a lot of people, especially if it's quite high, they'll just kind of keep reefing on it, but there's a reason why the neck has come up that much. That's obviously an extreme case, but when you're adjusting it, you just want to kind of help it out a little bit. At least I like to. So I'll put a little bit of back pressure, not anything, I'm not putting all my weight on it, just a little bit, just to kind of free up the rod, and you'll notice that your truss rod adjustments are really quick and easy. If you are tweaking with this stuff at home and you run into any sort of resistance, if you're not comfortable, stop. You can actually break the nut, especially in most acoustics that are in the sound hole. That end, and obviously it's very difficult to get to, and you're gonna be looking at a pretty good build. But you don't, at the same token, don't be scared of your guitar. You're only gonna learn by kind of doing it on your own, which is kind of the whole point of what I'm doing here, is just kind of follow along, build everyone's confidence. And like I said, I'll be doing a little bit more longer videos and stuff, kind of going in different concepts and techniques, and then we're gonna learn together. So I am happy with the sound. That feels much better. And then we'll just measure it. And there we go. So I brought it down about half. On the high side, I brought it down about half of the 64th. So I was just a little over 4/64ths, and now I'm just a little under 4/64ths. And then on the high side, we were just about at 6, and now we are 4.5. So very comfortable. And also, as I was kind of saying on the saddle, more importantly, if something happens down the line and we need to make an adjustment, there's room to go. If we kind of drop this as much and slam the guitar or the neck back as far back as it can go, it's going to be a couple of weeks as we get into fall, though it's still summer here. But you'll start getting a lot of fret buzz and stuff, and we can't really avoid that unless I cut a new saddle and so forth. So it's nice because it gives us a little bit of freedom for down the line repairs, but also feels good. Cool. That's that. That is the Gibson J35. So again, I did a pickguard on this one, and I was going to stream that, but anyway, it is what it is. So some really handy tools. Again, I'm not affiliated with any of this stuff, but this is also by Music Nomad. They make so many like cool little tools. This one is one of my favorite ones because what this guy is doing, it has a little brush on the end, and then it has this little kind of cleaning cloth that works really well for getting under strings. So I actually use the brush on the headstock, and I just kind of take the dust off. It makes it nice and easy to kind of do that. Cool. Also, if you're using any form of cloth, watch out for the edges, because the edges will also give you little circles in your finish marks, which will show up more or less on other ones. My least favorite guitar to work on is anything in a high gloss black. My goodness. They are so finicky, and I've got OCD. I won't deny it. I'm quite a perfectionist, so if I start to see like little swirls and stuff in the finish, then I start freaking out. So it's why it's always nice. And I actually use a different polish and a different cloth that only comes out on black guitars. So basically, there's nothing else that's really going to contaminate inside of it, which just makes me happy in the end. And you'll see it on the next one, but normally I actually will clean all the metal and stuff and just make the whole guitar shine. I just like to make the extra effort. So when my clients are actually picking up, they kind of fall in love with their guitar again. At least that's the goal. I do know a couple of guys that get really angry when you clean their guitar. I didn't ask you to do that. It's like, well, it was kind of gross. I'm like, yeah, but it's mojo. Okay, fair enough. Just know, if your guitar's here, I'm gonna clean it. So actually, there's still a couple spots here that I'm seeing. So I'm gonna do one there, and there's one on the back too. You can always tell when a guitar is being played because you can see like the sweat or chalk marks, which is basically sweat. And it just kind of chills on there, and depending on, I do know a couple people too that have fairly acidic sweat, and it actually will eat through the finish, especially on like gold hardware and nickel plated, like cheap nickel plated stuff. They actually eat right through the metal coating, which is crazy. So, and they're aware of it and all that kind of stuff, but it's one of those things. The reason why I'm saying that is just an extra couple of minutes to clean it all off as you're kind of going or finishing it up will go a long way to just keeping your guitar as pretty as possible. Cool. lot of times we go through all this effort as guitar techs. It's kind of an ongoing joke, but we put all this effort into our finishing and so forth and make it so crazy, and the person, your client, picks up the guitar and they go, oh, cool, sweet, and they throw it back in the case. It's like, do you have any idea how much time I just wasted on that, or how much time I just spent doing that? But it's okay. I think the concept is that you don't know that I was here. I think that's... I mean, you can see that I'm doing the guitars now, but as far as here is your guitar back, you're like, oh, okay, I don't know what you did, but it feels great. Keep them wanting more, right? So I'm gonna throw this in the case, and we'll take a quick little 5. All right, where'd my brush go? All right, well, I'm just gonna keep going because, well, I am. So next up on the bench is this PRS. It's an SE, Paul Allender model. It's a cool finish. So this is directly, the Gibson I kind of did a little bit of work on, but this is like directly as I see it. What do I do? How do I go through it? How do I assess what I'm going to do? So this one, the complaint is action and intonation. So just want it to be a little bit lower. So I always take the straps off because they drive me crazy. So unless it's like super inconvenient for me to take them off, I don't want to break anything, but I can just pop that back on. Super easy. So I'll just put that aside for the time being. So, first things first, let's measure. Just kind of do this so I can see what's going on. And also because the music's in my headphones. So, the first thing I do is I see what tuning it's in. And we are around E standard. But a good thing to do is, like, for example, if we don't test that and we just rip the strings off, and this guitar is actually set up in, you know, drop C, and we just assume that it's an E standard, you're gonna have to adjust everything. You're gonna have to adjust the truss rod, so the neck angle, the saddles, the intonation points, and then you bring it back and give it to your client, and then all of a sudden it's an issue. I should also, again, kind of reiterate, this is how I do it, and this is how I run my shop. If you're at home and you have your own guitars, obviously you know the tuning of what you're gonna do, but because I just pick up a guitar out of a bag or case and just get to work, I want to record everything as I'm picking it up so that I know where I'm going as far as settings and so forth. And then also, again, just as what I've said, this is all stuff that's I've run into issues over the years. So cool. So we are in E standard, and I'll just kind of give it a quick little measure. And I'm just kind of seeing string action, and it is very low. Holy moly. So that is under 264. So I can imagine, yeah, there's a lot of fret buzz. So this is kind of what we're just saying on the acoustic. This is kind of cool how this works, right? So I was saying on the acoustic that if we go too far back on the angle, now all of a sudden we're going to start running into some fret issues, which is exactly what's happening on this. So the action is so low on this guitar, and I can feel, I imagine, because the action at the first fret's quite a bit higher than the middle, that there's going to be a back bow, which means that the truss rod is too tight, which it is. So there's a hump right here, and that is kind of indicative of where the truss rod would actually start bending. So obviously we know that we can move that up, or loosen that rather, or add relief. Problem with guitars, I find, is that there isn't really a lot going on, but we have so many terms that makes it so confusing. Maybe I'll do some sort of like dictionary or something, but in any case, that's the first thing. And then I also do my calipers, and actually, where are my calipers? And then I actually measure the string thickness as well. So again, I assume that it's going to be 10s on this, but it actually could have 8s, or it could have 13s on there. That's all going to pull and play in your guitar differently. So let me just grab my calipers. Normally this stuff is all directly in front of me, but I've just cleaned my bench so that you're looking at a nice clean bench, see, because you can see all the stuff sitting here. It's just OCD. So we are going to be 9 to 42. Yes'm. All right, cool. The other thing I like to do as well is when I kind of finish, and you'll see when I get to the testing stage, kind of when it's all done, is I just test everything, make sure everything's good. And I look at the jack and I see if the pots are scratchy and stuff. If I'm doing any electronics on, say, a Strat or something like that, I will actually do that first on the old strings, just because of the pick guard that's in there, right? So, efficiency. So we'll just loosen these off. If you've made it to this point, I truly appreciate it. This is actually kind of cool. I feel like I have someone to talk to. A lot of times when I'm doing this, well, all the time when I'm doing this, I obviously normally have no one to talk to. So my kids will come down every once in a while, and then one of them I can understand, the other one I can't. So it's not always the best for conversation. So like I said, I'll probably, I think I'm going to start doing this, I don't know as far as a schedule so forth yet, but I do definitely want to do this as I'm kind of setting up, because I'm always standing here at literally at all hours of the time. So I might do recorded videos and then upload that, or I'll just go live. So, and then, like I said, for the foreseeable future, I'll keep these up just so we can kind of all catch up and watch along. But I think I will probably just leave my lives, but I don't know, whatever. It's minor details. And that was nice because in this one, all the strings are coming out of the slot that's in there. Sometimes you actually have to take that cover off, which drives me crazy, especially if the angle of the saddle. It's just, again, efficiency. It's one step that I don't really want to do. But, and then the other thing that I will do, so I just cut off all these curls on the end of the strings, just so that they pull through nice and quick and easy. And then they're not dangling around. I have potential of scratching the guitar. I don't want to be doing that. And I actually save all of my strings. Not for me personally, that would be weird. I actually donate them to different causes. So I get a big box and then I fire them off. And there's a lot of people making jewelry and stuff out of that, which is pretty cool. So I don't know how they clean and how they do that, but that's not my problem. Okay, so there we are there. So first things first, I'm gonna do exactly the same thing that I did on the acoustic. we're going to do the fret polish, see if we can get a little bit better kind of before and after. So here is the before, looking at this frets. So, you know, they don't look bad, but you'll see a difference when we're all done. So I'm going to do the one thing, I'm just going to do the whole process. And one thing to, as I was also mentioning earlier, is you got to watch out for those fibers. So what I actually do on the pickups is I actually put a little bit of tape on them, and that's just preventing any of those fibers to get into the pickups, because that can demagnetize and wreak all sorts of havoc. So we'll just tape them up, just be a little extra careful, and we'll get to the polish. I think for now that this might be, this might be the best angle when I'm over there for now. I do want to set up another camera that's kind of over the bench, so. Yeah, it's not bad. Again, just to show the difference. So, oh, we're on this one, sorry. I'll get used to it. Actually, it might be better on this one. So I just did the first 3 frets. You can already see a little bit of a difference there. Camera angle's a little weird. Anyway. All right. So seems to be a little bit different. This contrast better on this one. Looks good. It looks good. You can always tell when a guitar is thirsty is when you put the oil on it before you even get to the other end of the neck. It's already soaked into the board there, so. There you be. So at this stage, I normally just kind of let it sit, do its thing, and then I kind of keep cleaning the rest of the guitar. Like I said, it's the easiest to do it, obviously, when there's no strings on it. Actually not terrible under there. A lot of times what I do is I'll actually take all the saddles off and clean the bridge as well, but this is all gold plated. I'm not going to really benefit from doing that, so I'm not going to do that. But I will do the tuners. Gold plated is always a tricky thing to kind of get a really high shine out of. At least I find. I haven't found a product that works really well for that, so if there's something that you do know that works for gold plated, please let me know. What I'm currently using is a product called Never Dull. It makes quite a difference, actually. So I'll just do half, see if you can see a difference. Too many differences. So on the headstock, I can't really see a difference. What if I turn these lights off? These are my bench lights. Is that any better? Do a contrast on that? Nope. Nope. All right, well, I'll have to figure that out. But in any case, that's one. And then what about on the back? Do you see a difference on the back? So I have done, oh yeah, you can see a difference on the back. So I've done this side. Just kind of come out all nice and clean and shiny. And it's just that extra kind of wow factor. That took me 30 seconds. And then when the client opens the case, they go, wow. So I like being that guy. I've been told before that my attention to detail / OCD is appreciated and noticed. A lot of people treat their guitars differently, and I mean that in the sense of, like, I'm a session musician, so I get hired to play with artists and stuff all the time, you know, like, this is a tool, so I don't really care if my guitar is super shiny or not, but It always looks good, you know, but I know that in like a week after I've played a couple shows or whatever, it's going to be all kind of grimy again. So it's not a huge thing, but still, I, the tech, like to do that. Actually, I recently just dropped off a guitar. I do pick up and delivery for all my stuff, so I was just dropping off a guitar. It was a big restoration for a friend, and he opened up the case and it just about fell over. So I didn't even think it could look like that. I know. So I can also feel, the other reason why I do that, and what I was just going to say, is that I can also feel that these tuners are loose. So when you have a string sitting on this and you start tightening it up or whatever, you'll notice that it maybe shifts just that much, and just that much is when you start noticing intonations out or whatever. And this actually is a complaint on this guitar, and perhaps the saddles aren't in the right position, but the tuner moving around like that certainly isn't helping anything. So I will address that as we are kind of cleaning it all up. Oh yeah, those are quite loose. So you don't want to like tighten them down, because that's a good way to crack the finish, but just enough so that they're not slopping around in the slot there. So that's good. Clean off the finger over here. What a difference that makes, holy moly. Again, part of my setups is just kind of a fret cleaning, fret dressing, some people might call it. Because fret crowning and all that kind of stuff, it gets to a whole other level. It can be sitting on your bench for quite some time. But it also depends on the situation, as always. Okay, so this one actually isn't, I thought this one, what was being described to me, I thought it was going to be really, really grimy. So kind of what we were talking about earlier with the sweat and stuff. So I thought I was going to have to do a little bit of a deeper clean, but this is actually okay. This stuff will work quite well. And again, I just kind of do around where the strings would be covering, so I'll do pickups. If there was a chrome cover on the pickup, I would use the same stuff on the covers as well, just to kind of get that nice pristine shine. But because this is all black plastic, I'm not really going to be able to buff it up. I do actually have some black plastic, it's car wax, but it's a lot of work and it doesn't really add too much. I thought I would try it and kind of see, and it, you know, you can notice a difference on there, but this isn't enough that you would notice it. It's on the ones that are like really, really scratched. It will kind of fill in those cracks and scratches and stuff, and then you'll notice a big difference, but I'm not going to waste my time and energy on that, because you're not going to notice a huge difference there. So here's that black gloss I was talking about. Seems like you can never get it clean. And you clean it one way and then you look at it and then the streaks are just going in a different direction. Phone is vibrating. Yeah, so this particular one I actually have a deadline because this one I'm supposed to be delivering today, so that actually might be what I'm looking at here. Indeed. All right. That's good. That's good. That's good. So, I don't think there's any strings provided. There it wasn't. Set of super slinkies for you. So in this, what I always like to do is kind of get awkward once. So in the sense, I'm just feeding all the strings through rather than doing one at a time. You can do it any way you want, but I like to work smarter. Sometimes I like to work so smart that I overthink everything. Actually, commonly I overthink everything because I'm trying to be as efficient as possible. Or think of every variable. I don't know if that's necessarily a negative thing, but that's a pretty common. I get that comment ever. So if I'm ever playing a gig or whatever, now I bring 10 extra patch cables and XLR cables and power cables. Not because I'm expecting it to fail, but there's always the possibility that one time something will go bad. And more often than not, I find myself actually saving the day. I showed up to one gig once and there was a whole PA set up. And the sound guy's like, yeah, awesome, so you're all ready to go? Yeah, well, there's the PA. I'm like, what? We'll walk over and the speakers are sitting in the corner. There's no cables. They forgot to pick them up on the rental. So. Holy no! Alright, and the last one. Wrangle them all up. This is such a funny hot topic, is the how you wind strings on a tuner peg. See, I'm not even paying attention. I did that to the wrong string. It's okay, it's okay. No harm done. If it was the other way around, though, my string would have been cut too short, so thankfully I'm good. And then I get kind of at this angle, give it a little bit of a bend, trying to take some of that stretch out. It is birds. I thought I heard like birds coming out of my headphones. Okay. But it was one of those like, what is that sound? Then I forgot that you're listening to music. One. All right. Plug it in, tuner it, cool. Actually, let me turn the way up here. That way you can hear what's going on. Actually, let me make sure it's not crazy loud for you. Gotta demute. Whew. So you can hear that just that little bit of wobble in there. That is our intonation. So that way we know what's actually happening as, that we can actually hear the tuning as we're moving up the neck, that it's a little out. So not ideal, unless you're in like one of those really crazy out of tune bands. Most people aren't though. So I'm not too worried about tuning at this point. The first thing I'm kind of doing is playability. So I don't know if you can actually hear that. Let me just mute the music for a second. So you can hear that scratchiness. So that's a dirty pot. So that's dust has gotten in there and stuff. But that's not uncommon. So what we'll do is we'll spray some lubricant in there in just a second because it's gone away. You can always tell if it's a bad pot. You can feel it. You'll feel really sloppy under you. Like when you're trying to adjust it, it just feels really loose. Or that scratch just doesn't go away. And now it's not actually making a sound. So we'll just throw a little bit of lubricant in there just to kind of double check and make sure. This was a marketplace purchase, so it's probably been sitting in someone's closet, but actually it's not making any sound now. So generally that's a great way. It's called a sweeper in the pot. I won't go into the technology of it, but basically there's a little part that's kind of going over, so the contact points inside of the pot. So a lot of times if you just kind of go from one extreme to the other, if you find yourself with some scratchy pots, that's a good thing to do. You can use deoxit, it's pretty popular. I use a silicone lubricant, but it depends on the pot that I'm doing it in. But it just is nice lubricant that just kind of makes everything all nice and clean. So the tone works, there's no issues there. And then I check the toggle. And that's also nice and clean. Okay, so just a little bit on the volume pot there. Cool. So just mute that for the sec. So the next thing I just do is kind of just give it a little clean. I like to do all this stuff just before I kind of get into the final cleaning, just in case, you know, I slop and make a mess and so forth. Don't normally though. Yeah, I'm digging this angle, but this is the other one I have. So, which one do you think we have? Oh, that's this guy. I need to do that. On the black, it's almost next to impossible to actually even see that. Well, that's not ideal. What is that? That is our pickup lead. Let's see, is it any better if I go to here? Not really. So I came in to spray the pot, and sometimes I wish I don't do this, but it's good. That's why it's here. So just some electrical tape on the edges, and I actually just pulled it right off the ends. So now there's live terminals just kind of rolling around in there. And I can see that my ground wire is not connected, which I didn't hear a difference, but it won't be working quite the same way. Well, I'm not going to just buckle that back up, so let's turn on the soldering iron. Might be some wire. Oh, it's not bad. I was going to say there might be some wires in view, but at the same time I'm not totally worried about it. So yeah, so the split coil, so if you got a pickup, and we'll get into this when we do the electronic stuff, but there's 4 wires in there and 2 of them get connected together to give you a humbucker. And normally, or what most people prefer to see, is some sort of heat shrink, which is what we'll do. But there was just some electrical tape. The problem with electrical tape, it works well when you're putting it in there, but as you move around and so forth, it will eventually just kind of get old and sticky. I'm sure you've run into a cable that has that. Excuse me. So we'll just kind of take that off, put on some heat shrink, heat it up. It doesn't go anywhere. So now I know that there won't be any shorting out on the pickups. And then also reattach this ground coming out of one of the pickups. So I don't really have a great angle of that. Let's see if I can get in there. So you can see these edges just in here. So they're just kind of chilling. Yeah, whatever. I won't try and focus on it. And then, yeah, there's a ground. So just trust me. There's cables. They're not connected. I'm going to connect them. Oh, camera. We might get a shift here. Ooh. Right, I'm tethered. Just moistening my sponge. Yeah, unfortunately, I hate to say it, I'm sure we all have stories if you have taken your guitar to Guitar Techs. Unfortunately, there are people that would see that and just close it back up. I've had that a couple times on my guitars. That's kind of actually the reason how I got into this, but like I said, that's a story for another day. So it takes us 10 seconds to fix, and then we don't have to worry about it. So I've got to heat it up. Perfect. Apologize if the camera moves a little bit here. I wasn't expecting to do some soldering, and I'm trying out all these camera angles and stuff, so cables are just everywhere. I will make them all clean and organized. So, like I said, let me know what angles you like. I personally like. Oh, yeah. See, there we are. Oh, hey. Oh, hey. Personally, I like this. I like because you can see what I'm doing. Just got to figure out a kind of higher def, but in any case. Ouch! Done. That's it. That's all it took. And now I can be assured that this guitar is going to go back to the owner. They'll be happy. Then they'll come back. And I'll see them again. Crazy. What a crazy concept. All right. I'll just do a little bit for the split coils. Then it'll be good. That's way too much. Make it a little bit shorter. Coop. And everyone's favorite secret weapon. It's funny, every single time that I do this, I always think how badass it would be like if I smoked. Just take my cigarette out and just like... I don't know. I don't know why I think that, but these are the things. These are the things that go through my head when I'm doing work. Okay, so lighting and stuff might freak out as I turn this on. It normally does. Not bad. Yeah. There we go. All done. And then I'm going to be extra special cool and just take a little zip tie and grab all of these. I'm just going to bend these splits back, grab all the loose ends. I think that's why that's actually why it came loose in the first place. Hold it all in place. So this is actually what happens internally. I don't know if that's actually what happened here. Soldering is not what I would deem acceptable personally, but not my job. The rest of the wiring in here, it looks like we've done a pickup swap. You can just kind of tell, just everything's blobbed in there and stuff. Yeah, as far as the connections and stuff go, if they're super tight and you cut them to exactly the right length, and then your pots become loose and they start to spin, you know, just kind of prone to just keep spinning it. But you actually can break the cables in there, and then all of a sudden you're on stage or at home or whatever, it doesn't work, or that knob that you're trying to twist doesn't do anything. That's what happened. So that took me, what, 5 minutes, and like I said, now it's all done. Okay, cool. Now I can go back to what I actually wanted to do. Just gonna grab a little bit of chemical, or sorry, a little bit of lubricant. Actually, we probably fixed the problem, because the reason why it was cracking is because of the ground, now that I think about it. But it doesn't hurt to throw a little bit of lubricant in there. Oh, I forgot to do that. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, just a little dab. And then you can feel it. It's now nice and smooth. So this isn't too, like I said, it's not as grimy as I thought it was going to be, but this has been sitting for a long time, and you can see all the dust that kind of just gets into the faders, and you can actually, or pots, and you can actually feel them. You can just feel it's like scratchy, kind of just grinds under your fingertips. So if it gets to that point, it needs to be replaced. But thankfully, this should be good to go. So we always check twice, solder once. So I'll just make sure that... Whoa! Look at that. Now our tone is becoming a little bit more noticeable as well. Perfect. All right. Just gonna close that back up now while it's all done. Cute. Get the rest of this stuff off my bench. You're not welcome here. Go home, Dewey. Okay, so next thing. Let's remove that back bow. So for me, I always go, everyone does this differently. Like I said, this is my procedure. So for everyone, they kind of look at this a little bit differently. For me, the first thing is trying to get the string action. I'm not too worried about the saddles or the intonation, because obviously if it's not playing, then that's gonna have to shift and move anyway. So the first thing that I'll do is I will always start with the neck. So once strings are on, once it gets up to string tension, the first thing I'll always do is adjust the truss rod and just kind of get that nice playability. For me, I tend to have most success having just a little bit of relief, so there's a little bit of back bow, and we'll kind of go through those as they start to pop up. And like I said, keep an eye out for some tutorials and workshops and stuff. This is just kind of, is this a thing I want to do? And I think it is. You let me know. Okay, let's take this off. Just a touch more. And then we'll bring it back up to pitch and see if it's pulling any differently on us. Sometimes on some guitars, you'll actually notice that they, sorry, I moved you. On some guitars, you'll actually know, that will actually change the tuning of your guitar dramatically by adjusting the truss rod if it's out. I also feel that our tuners are slipping, so we'll tighten those up in a sec too. Oh, that. Cool. That does it. That did it. So now let's see. We'll take a quick peek at our string action again. And yeah, that's actually come up to kind of a nice feel. And I haven't even messed with the saddles and stuff. So just all I've done is we've put new fresh strings on it and we've adjusted the truss rod and it's already changed the action and we haven't even adjusted anything yet. So that's kind of, adjusted anything yet. So yeah, that's kind of one of the benefits of doing that, is that we can, or rather that's showing how any slight difference to your guitar can make a big difference. So yeah, the next thing I'm gonna do is, I think the next thing I'm gonna do is intonation. Let's see if this one's any better for that. Not really, it's a dark camera. So this is always a funny topic. Some people are really finicky on this. I am one of those people. So once you put your guitar in set up and you've got tuning in it and everything's working on here, we can just intonate it in this point, right? Well, yes and no. You can intonate it, obviously, but what's gonna happen is that if you've got some sort of neck rest, I've got this lead shot, or if it's back here, or if it's underneath your headstock, all of that is pushing on your neck differently. So that when you pick your guitar up, now that neck doesn't have any pressure wherever that point may be in your guitar. So is this like crazy scientific? Jeff, this makes no sense to me. You're speaking crazy to me. Well, probably. But what happens is when I put it up in this position, now there's nothing on that neck. So it actually will make a difference. So I always set up in playing position. Put my face so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Let's go this way a little. There we go. All right. So intonation. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? A pretty good back bow happening on. Can I get the right angle in you? Yeah. See what's happening here? Need to see what's happening on the points. So it's actually going into the guitar, and that's telling me that the string tension underneath is too tight for these strings. So you can do one of two things. We can loosen the strings under there and bring that back up a little bit. But in this particular case, these screws up on top are actually quite loose. So I'm gonna just bring those down a little bit, and then that should level out our bridge and put us in a little bit of a better playing position. Actually, just out of curiosity, I'm just kind of checking it on my tuner, trying to see how far it's out. Wow, quite a bit. So yeah, let's do that. This one, unfortunately, I have to loosen string tension. So all I'm going to do is just kind of put this a little bit closer to the body. This is kind of the funny thing about all of this setup stuff. As I was saying, they all kind of interact with one another. And I'm literally doing like an eighth of a turn. I think that's probably all I need. I mean, that's the thing. You see a screw, so what does it do, right? Like, I was one of those kids. It's kind of funny that I got into repairs because oh, my TV doesn't work, and I would just open up the back. I had no idea what I was looking at, but I just started trying to see if I could find anything that kind of stood out. So Guitars are very similar. There's a less explosive electronic components that you can run into, so you're not going to break anything. And like I said, hopefully what this kind of starts to bring is a little bit of confidence in you adjusting your own guitars and doing your own thing. I'm happy to see you. I'm happy to help you, as is any other tech that's out there. But at the same time, it's also good for you to know kind of basic 101. It's like being able to change a tire on your car or putting oil in your car or whatever. So at least that's my thought. Okay, so what I'm also going to do is send this off just a touch. It doesn't have to be floating and being crazy. We're not going, but that angle is a little too sharp for us to get a really nice setup on it. So I'm just going to loosen that just a little bit, and then that should be okay. Whoa. Yep, 5 springs all the way in. Yeah, that would do that. So I'm going to go and give it a good turn back. And now I'm going to leave that off, bring it back up to pitch, and we'll see that this will start to shift on us a little bit. So what normally happens, the reason why that kind of stuff gets done is that we don't want to use the tremolo feature in the guitar. Totally fine, totally understandable. There's a couple different other things that you can do. We can block it, or we can... So what's happened is, because we've put all the spring tension on here and we've put this all the way in, what's happening on the bridge is that it's just pulling the back of the bridge in as much as it can, because that's where the strings are actually connecting. And so it's making that angle go up, and now that makes the front of the bridge go up, which brings our string height up. And you're like, but you said that the action was low. Well, it was low, but that's because the neck was compensating because of how high this was. So the neck got all the relief back, so that the neck was back. So anyway, we're fighting against ourselves over the entire part of the guitar. So kind of find that level balance of everything, and it will just start to kind of feel... It also feels different on the string action. I was just going to say, it'll start to feel a little bit differently as you play it. I can feel it's a little less intense, and when you're playing it, it was really tough to kind of dig into, and now it feels nice and kind of as a guitar would. I know it's kind of maybe a little difficult to explain, but if there's too much tension on the back side of it, like on a Les Paul, for example, where you're coming through the bridge and then, or through the stop tail and then up over the bridge, if that angle is too extreme, you'll feel that your strings are really, really tight. So it's really difficult to do bends and things like that. So if we kind of like level out that difference, then the guitars become a little bit looser up top, a little bit more playability, right? So anyway, this kind of stuff's all coming. So I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm going to lower that just a little bit more. And I think that will be okay. I'll go with my smaller screwdriver and see if I can get just a little bit more of a turn out of there. I'm not trying to like screw this directly down to the body. I just want to kind of level that out just a touch. There we go. So here is the difference now that we're kind of looking at on that. See how that angle is different? This would be a good part for some instant replay, but let's watch that in instant replay. But in any case, I digress. So cool. Now we're back up to a nice playable feeling. Actually, our string action came down, which makes sense because we put the front of this down. So actually, I'll just you can hear my face. You can hear what I'm saying. Because we actually brought this down, what I was able to do, or what happened, is that obviously the saddles are, and you can kind of see that in the saddles how high they've been kicked up. So the whole guitar, everything is just fighting against each other. So the truss rod was really far back, if I do like this. So the truss rod was really far back, so now this was buzzing. But because of that, we ended up having to bring the front end of the bridge up. So we tightened the springs in underneath to pull it all in. Anyway, it's really difficult to play a guitar like that. So what we're doing is we're kind of eliminating all of that. And so the reason why I like to do the setups this way, starting with the truss rod, and you're kind of making your way back to the guitar. You get that nice kind of play action. It's a nice kind of straight neck that we're looking at, or close to straight. And then we can kind of start looking at the bridge. And then once that feels good, then we can start adjusting our saddles accordingly. And then obviously intonation. So yeah, a couple of our strings went down a little bit, but that's also because these saddles are slammed. So that's good. That's kind of what we're looking for. Yeah, those ones need to come down a little bit. Yeah, that actually dropped quite a bit. Okay, so we're a little out of tune as well. So let's just make sure we're in the close to. I'm not terribly worried about it. I just want to be close to pitch. Actually, might work. So the other thing that starts to happen too, and this happens well on Strats or whatever, is there was also a complaint that the screws sitting in the saddles were actually sharp. He puts his hand on there. That makes sense because, again, and because the action was so weird off, the springs or the screws were all the way sitting out of the saddle. So now what I'm doing is I have to bring the action up. So now those screw tops are actually being buried in the saddle, if that makes any sense at all. Once we bring this up. Again, I just kind of put this rough, then I kind of sight it, then I play it. Not to... I don't know how to say this without being cocky, but I'm a guitar player, so like I know what I like. Not that my way is the only way, but basically it's one of those things where, you know, if you do a Google search really on any guitar, any manufacturer, they'll have recommended setup specs, numbers, however you want to read them. There's generally a variance. Sometimes I'll set up to that, but every guitar that passes my bench, I'm happy with playing it. I haven't really run, at least what people have said. I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not trying to be a rude or anything, but I've never been told, wow, that guitar feels terrible. There's been the odd person that they have a really unusual request. Their action's super duper high because they're playing with slide, but that was never parlayed or anyway, whatever. The point is that I like to play every guitar, and if it doesn't feel good to me, then I'm not going to release it to my client because I'm not happy. You're probably not going to be happy. So it's worked well for me. So that's nice. So now it feels super tight, but what's happened is because we've brought the saddles up, it's actually made our pitch go way up. So we'll bring that back to pitch. Might just go a little bit higher low side. Again, I'm not really too worried about intonation or anything like that, but what I am doing is just kind of getting a feel for it, and I just want it to be comfortable kind of the whole way through, and then I can fine tune it and intonate. That feels much better. So then the other thing I'm kind of looking for just a little bit is string buzz. We still have a little bit there. Cool, so just a little bit more here, and then we're ready for intonation. This guitar is actually on the home stretch now, so feels quite a bit different than where it was. And I mean, as far as, again, to kind of reiterate, I haven't done a crazy amount of work. I've just kind of leveled everything out, but now the guitar feels quite a bit different. So sometimes it can be a little bit of a daunting task, you think, to set this all up, but you kind of know how all the parts work with one another, and you can adjust it accordingly. Cool. All right. So, try to find the angle here. Sure, this works. So especially on a trem bridge, meaning that it's all kind of floating and reacting to one another, you want to get the guitar pretty close to being in tune. You don't want anything super flat or super sharp, so that you're getting kind of close to how the bridge will react. Because now we're gonna get to everyone's favorite part, intonation. And look at that, it actually is in tune now. It wasn't in tune, it was quite a bit sharp, which makes sense. And then now that we've adjusted the playability, it's actually now in pitch. Yeah, that's good. That is a little flat, so we are going to loosen the saddle. And with most guitars, you want to do just the slightest tweak. Here we go. That's quite a bit sharp, so we have to bring the saddle back. That's probably too much. Actually, let me do this so you can actually hear what I'm doing. It's just maybe bring this down. So we're still a little sharp. So we'll move the saddle back a bit. You can hear our tuning go sharp. Now we're just a hair over. Okay, we'll come back to that in just a second, because yeah, these other ones are out, so. Actually, that is good. Just a little bit more. Isn't this fun? This is so much fun. Yeah, so there's a couple that are still out, so what I like to do is get it close, and then I'll kind of just check them all over again. Because they're moving around, so that's a little sharp. Generally, this happens on trim or Bigsby or floating bridge, like a Floyd Rose or something like that, because it's all reacting together. So all the string action is pulling the whole bridge. So, like I said, I'll get it super close, and then I'll just kind of check everything else, and then I can come back and fine tune it. So, because it pulled this one way out of tune with the other adjustments that we did, so that means, firstly, what I'm doing on this string is going to throw the other ones out. So. Alright, so we're right back. Yeah, see, now that's sharp. It wasn't. Now it is. Yeah. So now they're all in tune. And they were just a tad out from one another just a moment ago. So that's why just a little bit of a difference, or a little bit of a tweak, makes a big difference. Cool. All right, there you go. So there is a PRS SE. A little bit extra coming in there with the all the adjustments that came up, and it didn't feel that bad when you get it when you're first picked it up, but then when you start playing it, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, and then one thing leads to another. So that's it. I'm gonna wrap this up here. I do have to get these off and delivered. So thank you so much if you hung out and watched. If you popped in, whatever, I appreciate that. We'll do a couple more of these, and like I said, let me know what you think and suggestions, ideas, all that kind of stuff. Because at the end of the day, this particular thing I'm kind of here for you, really. So thanks again, and Jeff from Strumwood Guitars. Happy strumming.